Oh, this poor guy. We're still on this poor guy, and he's still dealing with these horrible questions. But we'll get through it. Oh, nope, nope. I do not have the speed on the correct setting, do I? Bam. There we go. There we go.
Comments on the items of evidence you were reviewing on June 29th.
Greg was taking notes.
All right. You reviewed those notes?
Yes.
Do those notes reflect...
It's the same objection. It's hearsay.
Sustained.
Did you, or anyone else in that room on June 29th, observe a reddish stain in the position of the cutout on sock A?
Objection calls for speculation, hearsay, no foundation.
Sustained. You can ask this witness as to what he himself saw.
In terms of your observations, did you see a reddish stain in the area of the cutout on sock A?
Mr. Scheck? That's not necessary.
All right.
Answer the question, Mr. Yamaguchi.
Did you see a reddish stain in the area of the cutout on sock A?
No, I've never seen a reddish stain. The only observation I've ever made pertaining to a stain is some discoloration.
Right. Did you see a reddish discoloration in the area of the cutout on June 29th on sock A?
Objection is asked and answered.
Overruled.
No.
Did you see in the area of the cutout on sock A the material of the sock being crinkled and puckered?
I can't remember that well with that much detail, but what I do remember is that with a cursory observation to look at it, we couldn't notice any stains on that particular item. We didn't really look at it in detail at that time because we were just generating notes, and I guess they needed it for some type of a game plan as to how to handle this evidence.
So the answer to my question with respect to whether you saw the material in the area of the cutout on sock A as being crinkled and puckered on June 29th, the answer is no.
Objection is asked and answered.
Overruled.
I don't recall specifically if it was crinkled and puckered or anything like that.
On June 29th, you knew that these socks came from Mr. Simpson's bedroom.
I may or I may not have at that point. I'm not sure.
Was there any discussion among you, Mr. Matheson and Ms. Kessler, as to whether the socks came from Mr. Simpson's bedroom?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Was it your state of mind on June 29th that these socks were a particularly important piece of evidence?
All evidence is important, dumbass.
I don't remember that clearly, but all the items of evidence that we're looking at, I didn't know histories behind each and every one of them. I don't know when I heard that was from his house or where they collected it from or anything like that.
You just said, I believe, that you're sure that the examination of these socks was cursory. Are those your words?
Yes.
You have an independent recollection that the examination of these socks, a white piece of paper, Michelle Kessler's office, with you and Mr. Matheson, Michelle Kessler, is cursory.
That's right. We looked at everything quickly. We didn't take time to take a very detailed examination of the evidence items.
You measured the swatches.
There was a purpose behind that, and they had their reasons for wanting to do that.
Your purpose in reviewing each of these items was to make a determination as to what kind of further serological or DNA testing should be performed.
I think the key word is potential. What potential for types of testing could be performed? It wasn't meant to hard and fast draw the line here and say we're sending this here and that there. But we needed some kind of an idea, or they did. They're the ones that make the decisions in that. So they're
And
Mr. Scheck, do you need him there at that location because the court reporter is having great difficulty with his back turned to her?
well, perhaps maybe if he faces this way and I stand over here, that might be good.
Don't forget the jurors.
Well, no, I'm not. In order to determine the potential for testing, you have to make observations about the amount of blood on an item.
Objection is argumentative. It's not a
Sustained.
question.
In the course of determining the potential for testing, is it not important to make observations about blood on the various items of evidence?
Well, if it's not patently obvious, in other words, if you can't, it doesn't jump right out at you, then there's not much we can do about it. At that stage, we wanted to just take a look at it and say, wow, there's blood here, okay, then looks like there's enough to potentially do RFLP. But if it's not obvious in such a quick look, then we couldn't make that determination. And it would have to be looked at again more carefully at a later time.
Wasn't one of the boxes on this sheet you were preparing to determine,
That misstates it. He didn't prepare that, Your Honor.
Sustained.
wasn't one of the boxes on the sheet that Mr. Matheson was writing on,
Objection, that's irrelevant. It's hearsay. It's
Sustained.
Matheson's report.
Form is irrelevant at this point.
well, wasn't one of the determinations that you were assisting in making is what kind of future testing could be performed on the various evidence items?
Yes, I stated that already. We're looking at these things to see whether they have potential for RFLP or PCR. And serological testing, conventional serological testing. So we had to take a quick run through and look at them and assess them. That was by no means, at least indicated to me by Michelle and Greg, going to be a final analysis by any stretch.
Well, you were trying to determine whether you could perform conventional serology, RFLP, PCR, or all of them on a particular item, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Overruled.
Is that right?
Yes,
And you were also trying to determine whether you could perform all of those tests and still have some left over to give to the defense.
yes,
And wasn't that the purpose of looking at these items?
to get a general idea, an approximate idea of what you just stated, yes.
And in order to determine if you could do an RFLP test, a PCR test, and a conventional serology test on sake, don't you have to examine it to determine how much blood is on it, if any?
Objection, that's argumentative. Blank.
Overruled.
Once again, I was under the understanding that we were there to do what we could by just looking at the items. Further testing to be sure whether or not there's blood on it would have to be done and tested with something like that phenolphthalein test that I explained earlier. That was not a part or an intention of that particular meeting. At least that's not what was conveyed to me.
In other words, you were taking out these evidence items and looking at them to determine whether you could perform conventional serology, RFLP, and PCR, but you weren't taking any particular care to look at the item to see if there was blood on it. Is that what you're saying?
It's argumentative.
Sustained. That's right.
Mr. Yamauchi, after you, Michelle Kessler, and Mr. Matheson put that sock out, put those socks out on white paper, looked at them, did you not conclude that you had done a blood search and no blood was observed?
Objection, that's compound.
Sustained.
Did you not conclude after your examination of the socks there was no blood on them?
No, not definitively. If you add in visual observation, that probably would be okay. But we didn't do any chemical tests to show that for sure there's no indication of blood there.
So from your visual observation and examination of the socks, you saw no blood on either.
I didn't see anything that appeared to be blood at that time.
And after you, I guess, did there come a point in time when you wrapped up the socks and you put them back, I guess at that point in the brown paper bag?
Yeah, at a certain point we would have concluded and have to put everything away.
And you put both socks in that same brown paper bag?
I would have put it back as I found it when I took it out. I
You
can't
found it?
remember exactly which way that was.
When you found it on June 29th, weren't both socks just in that, brown paper bag?
Yeah, I believe so.
Sorry?
I believe so.
And they were subsequently put in the underwear.
Yes, I believe that was done at a different time.
And to your knowledge, has any of the cuts in either of those socks been made by defense experts?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
When you put the socks back in the in its packaging on June 29th, did you see any reddish powder of any kind on the white piece of paper?
I don't recall anything like that.
All right, Mr. Yamaguchi, would you repackage the socks for us, please? All right, let the record reflect that Mr. Yamauchi has returned the item to the bag, the socks. And Mrs. Robertson, if you'd retake possession of that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the afternoon session. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Do not discuss this case amongst yourselves. Do not form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you, and do not conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. As far as the jury is concerned, we'll stand in recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. All right, we'll be in recess. Thank you. Mr. Yamauchi, tomorrow morning.
That's the tip of the iceberg. And the other point is,
And Mr. Douglas, are you going to be available at the conclusions today to discuss these matters with Mr. Harmon?
Yes, Your Honor, I will.
All right.
okay, and the other point, just to alert you, I don't have a lot of redirect with Yamauchi, and Mr. Sims is waiting in the wings, but just to alert the court, at the close of the business yesterday, we requested an opportunity to take possession of the
boy,
socks.
here
Item
we go.
13. Those socks were taken back
Here
to
we
the
go.
LAPD laboratory, and this morning they were examined with a stereo microscope by Greg Matheson in the company of Mr. Yamauchi at that time. Mr. Matheson, and the whole point of this exercise was to be able to show the jury that even when these socks are waved under their noses, there's still blood on them. There's blood on them today. Mr. Matheson conducted a phenolphthalein test in Mr. Yamauchi's
Wait.
presence, and
Are they saying there's no blood on the
And that-
socks? Is that what they're trying to say, that there is no blood on the socks? Come on.
gave a positive presumptive result. And then subsequent to that, we brought a stereo microscope over here. We've got it in the box right here, and we intend to identify through Mr. Sims, not through Mr. Yamauchi, who's waiting in the wings, blood-stained areas that Mr. Sims has previously examined and identified and done his own form of presumptive testing, the orthotolidine testing on, and then to request the court to allow the jury to see the reddish blood stains that are imperceptible to the naked eye, so that the jury can see that the fraud has finally been revealed and that there's blood on those socks today. And so I just wanted to let you know that that's how we're going to end up this whole segment, Your Honor, with the court's permission.
All right, where are the socks at this moment?
Right here, Your Honor.
All right.
Just wanted to let you know.
Mr. Scheck, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. First is I would ask leave of the court to reopen my cross-examination for about 10 to 15 minutes just to cover a point or two that I have to cover with this witness and no other witness that I neglected in the rush to finish yesterday.
Yesterday you told me it was 5 minutes that you
Well,
had.
it hasn't really expanded that much, but I'm just trying to be conservative. The second thing is that I do have objections to what Mr. Harmon is proposing. Certainly, I have objections to the use of phenolphthalein tests without any confirmatory tests. I think the court's clear in the ruling about that, so I don't think that those could be admissible on the redirect examination. And I also think it's beyond the scope of the cross-examination of Mr. Sims and would be improper redirect. And I think that if they want to call, I just don't think it's within the scope of redirect examination of Mr. Sims at this point, certainly if they're going to offer it through him. So whenever they get to that, I want to put the court on notice, too, that I have some objections. Finally, there's I would just like to put the court on notice that at some time, and I don't want to take up time in front of the jury time right now, maybe at the end of the day, I have some applications with respect to the rules concerning discourse between lawyers. and ad hominem
Of
statements
course.
in argument.
Here we go.
And finally, I have a query of the court as to how we can handle the issue that the prosecution raised with its board concerning Dr. Lee in terms of how the statements and of lawyers are going to be presented to the jury. They brought this up over my objection. They're putting up a board which shows Mr. Harmon and Mr. Clark as precipient witnesses standing at the shoulder of Dr. Lee. Mr. Harmon and Mr. Clark have indicated, well, Mr. Harmon on the record and Mr. Clark, I don't see him here, but I'm sure Mr. Harmon knows, have both indicated that, oh, there you are, sorry, please. Have both indicated that neither of them can say whether or not Dr. Lee changed gloves during the course of that examination. They did notice that he did or did not do so. They cannot corroborate any affirmative statement of Mr. Yamauchi on that point.
All right, well, that's an issue, though, that we can take up after we conclude with these two witnesses. So let's not take up the time to just, I appreciate your bringing that to my attention so that I'm aware that we'll need to discuss that.
Well, yes. Your Honor, at the time you consider appropriate, we have submitted to the court, after rereading the text of everything yesterday and considering it, what we would propose is a curative instruction on the whole issue of the statements of airtight alibi and the defendant's statements.
All right, have you given that to Mr. Harmon?
Yes. And the question is, Mr. Darden, the question
It
is,
was given to me 2 or 3 minutes ago.
but we've reviewed the record, and following the court's practice, we've given the matter some thought, and the only issue is when you want to take it up.
All right, well, Mr. Darden, I take it from your comment that means that you'd like some additional time to study that? All right. Then we'll take that up after we conclude with Mr. Yamauchi. All right, Mr. Harmon, any other comment?
Just on, when we get to the Henry Lee Board thing, it would be helpful if they provided us some of the reciprocal discovery that they're clearly obligated to at this point in the case. So I think we need to throw that into the mix when they start complaining. He took a lot of notes during that. We saw that. In terms of why I didn't see him change gloves, I wasn't there the whole time. I don't know what happened when I wasn't there. Mr. Clark, same with him. So we'll be happy to discuss that at the appropriate time, and look forward to getting the reciprocal discovery we should have gotten months ago.
All right, we'll take that up at the appropriate time then today. All right, let's have the jurors, please.
Curative instructions, which means somebody said something wrong and the judge has to cure it. Uh-oh. I think we're going to get into a battle at the end of the day. He said he had issues with lawyers' conduct. I have a lot of issues with all the lawyers' conduct.
Mr. Colin Yamauchi is again on the witness stand. And yesterday, Mr. Scheck had indicated he had completed his cross-examination. However, he has asked permission to ask a few additional questions that he had forgotten to ask, and I've granted permission for him to do so. And Mr. Scheck, you have until 9:30 to conclude your cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Morning, Mr. Yamauchi. Sorry, my apologies to everybody for prolonging this any further than it has to go. Mr. Yamauchi, do you have a laminar flow hood in your serology laboratory?
Yes.
And we're talking, and that is the place where you conducted your extractions in this case.
In that hood and on my workbench.
All right. And what is your understanding of a laminar flow hood? How does it work?
Well, rather than sucking air in from the environment, it provides its own filtered air.
Okay. Now, where may I get this?
50 million trillion gazillion.
Now,
All right, and this is People's Exhibit
285, I believe.
285.
Now, Mr. Yamauchi, were you present the morning that Dr. Lee examined the sock?
Yes.
And were you participating in the arrangements for Dr. Lee's examination of this stock at your laboratory?
Oh, we were trying to provide him with whatever he requested.
Were you aware of when this examination was arranged?
Objection, that calls for hearsay, it's irrelevant.
Overruled.
When it was arranged,
Yes.
they just came and told me that this was what was going to happen.
Well, when? How much notice?
I don't think I had more than an hour notice.
Do you know if there were any time limits indicated with respect to the examination of the sock?
Objection, calls for speculation, hearsay, no foundation, it's irrelevant.
Sustained on the hearsay foundation.
All right. Did you have any communication with others from the people from the district attorney's office or others in your laboratory as to what the arrangements were to be for the examination of this sock?
No.
Okay. Did you know where Dr. Lee was at the SID laboratory and how long he was there before he entered the conference room to examine the sock?
Objection, compound, irrelevant, calls for hearsay, speculation.
Overruled.
Well, he was sitting out in the lobby area.
For how long?
I'm not sure. I think at least half an hour.
At least.
Yeah.
While arrangements were being made to bring out the sock so he could examine it.
Objection, argumentative, calls for hearsay, speculation.
Overruled.
Well, we're locating the sock and bringing it to that area.
Now, without telling us what anybody said, did you consult with anyone on the side of the table where Dr. Lee was as to what they perceived in terms of the examination, his examination of the sock, and whether or not Dr. Lee changed gloves
Objection,
between
it's
examination of the
irrelevant.
sock? Without telling us what they said, did you consult
Objection, it's
with
irrelevant.
anyone in that picture?
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
All right. With respect to whether or not Dr. Lee changed his gloves between the examination of the two different socks, did you consult with anybody depicted in those photographs about their observations? But don't tell us what they said.
Yes.
All right. Now, so that would include Mr. Harmon?
Yes.
That would include Mr. Clark?
I'm not sure.
All right. Now, you knew Dr. Lee by reputation before this morning, the morning of this sock examination?
Yes.
Had you met him previous to that?
No.
Did you expect, before Dr. Lee even came to examine the sock, do you remember when this was? February?
January, February, something like that.
It was while
Not
this
real
trial
sure.
was going on.
Yes, I believe so.
While testimony was being taken before this jury.
Could I check?
Well, would you accept that it would be sometime about February 1st? Sometime in that area?
I could look in my notes and find
Well-
out for sure.
I have 5 minutes, so sometime around February?
Approximately.
Okay. Now, did you have any feeling, withdrawn, to your knowledge, had any expert from the defense been allowed to examine and touch the socks before this morning when Dr. Lee did so?
Objection, it's irrelevant, calls for hearsay, no foundation, speculation.
Overruled.
Okay, had anyone else touched the socks by the defense? Is that what your question is?
That's my question.
To your knowledge.
To
your
my
knowledge.
knowledge, that I
No
remember.
foundation, Your Honor.
Overruled.
I don't believe so.
Now, you testified, withdrawn. Now, Mr. Yamauchi, did you have any concerns that Dr. Lee might criticize your laboratory?
Objection, it's irrelevant, calls for speculation.
I haven't heard the full question.
Let me put it this way to you. As you
And
sit
Mr.
here
Scheck, would you turn the podium towards the witness,
Oh,
please?
sorry.
Thank you.
Listen, no, sir.
As you sit,
Nobody in the entire universe was ready for this type of critique. Nobody was ready for this. They didn't. You're not looking at what they did with the work. You're looking at all these other things. So no, he wasn't. Okay, whatever.
Here today, do you have any feelings about whether goes to bias?
I haven't heard the question yet, Mr. Harmon.
Do you have any
It's
feelings
irrelevant.
of resentment towards Dr. Lee?
Resentment? No.
Do you anticipate that he might testify in this case?
Objection, it's irrelevant, cause for speculation, no foundation.
Sustained.
It's football timer. It's a football game, 5 minutes.
Are you worried that Dr. Lee might criticize your laboratory?
No.
Okay. You have no feelings of resentment or irritation with Dr. Lee at all?
Objection, it's compound, ask and answer. Over.
No, actually, he seemed like a nice, congenial man.
That's your feeling?
Yes.
Okay. Now, let me see if I understand what you're telling us exactly. Are you...
Your Honor, object to the
Sustained.
monologue.
Mr. Yamauchi, are you telling this jury that you are certain that Dr. Lee did not change his gloves in between the examination of the sock? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I was sitting there and watching. I never seen him change his gloves.
All right. But are you certain that he didn't change his gloves?
Well, I mean, if he can do some magic trick and do it while I was turning my head away or something, I'm sure that's quite possible. But from my observation point and taking notes in that room, I didn't see him change his gloves while I was there.
All right. There's no question in your mind that you were watching him for the entire period, and as far as you're concerned, there's no way that he could have changed his gloves between the examination of those socks without you
That's
noticing.
not what he
Is
said.
that what you're telling us?
Compound.
It's not what he said. Overruled. That's not what he said.
Like I said again, I was just observing him like anybody else would watch somebody putting on a demonstration or looking at something. And
He did not say there is no way this man did change his gloves. He said he did not see him change his gloves the whole time he was watching him.
and to the best of my recollection and from what I seen there, I didn't notice that.
So that's to the best of your recollection.
Well, yes.
Now, in the first picture on this board, to the upper left-hand side, that's labeled "puts arm, no lab coat, into bag to elbow." Okay? You see that?
Yes.
All right. Now, that is what bag?
I believe that's a bag. Oh, yeah, that's a bag that the white envelope is in.
Right. The bag that the white envelope was in?
Mm-hmm.
And to your knowledge, is that the bag that originally contained the socks, the original container?
Yes, I believe it was.
And that original container was saved along with the socks, was it not?
Yes.
All right. And you see in photograph number 2 that Dr. Lee is taking white paper and it appears angling it as though to put something back into that paper bag.
Yes.
All right. And between those two pictures, did you observe Dr. Lee open up the paper bag, then put it upright, see what material would be on the white piece of paper, and then pour it back into the bag? Is that what happened between the picture on the upper left-hand column of the board and the one in the middle?
Could you describe that one more time?
First picture shows Dr. Lee putting an arm into the bag and
Right.
pushing it out, correct?
Right.
And the second picture shows him putting white paper, right, angling it and putting something back into the bag.
Yes.
All right. Now, in between those two pictures, did Dr. Lee hold the bag upright with the opening, vertical to the paper?
Let's
All right.
cheat real quick.
I
you
think
remember
I know
that?
what you're saying, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
Oh, guys. He might be done. I can't tell. I mean, Shek is there, but he could be done real soon. we might be getting close to the end of him.
Last question, Your Honor. Ask that these two documents be marked. Defendants, where are we at?
1191? 1191.
1191A,
Are you showing that to counsel?
yes. Now, Mr. Yamauchi, is it the regular course of business in your laboratory to do DQ alpha D1S80 typings on laboratory personnel?
It's the regular course. Well, we try to get the typings of anybody that wants to volunteer their blood or body fluids.
What I'm saying is, does your laboratory keep a list of biological samples of personnel that's known as a laboratory controls list?
Yes, we have a lot of control samples, and they're built up primarily of the people that work in the lab.
Is there such a thing as a laboratory controls list where each of the DQ alpha, D1S80, and polymarker typings of people that work in the laboratory are compiled?
I believe Aaron Riley's compiled such a list,
Right.
or something to that effect.
And one of the purposes of that list is to have the types on file of all laboratory personnel as a check against possible cross-contamination.
Well, yeah, I believe that's a secondary reason why we have it around, or it could be used for that reason.
What other reasons do you use them?
Well, basically standards, and test ourselves in validation. Say somebody wants to become a PCR analyst, they would need a set of samples to test and reflect upon to see if they're getting the right answers.
So Aaron Riley is the individual that does the typings.
I've done DQ alpha, she's done the polymarker and the D1S80.
And this laboratory control list is something that's done in the regular course of business in your laboratory?
Regular course of business, could you define what you're meaning by that?
As a matter of routine, in your laboratory, one compiles this laboratory control lists of DQ alpha, D1S80, and polymarker typings of the people who work there.
Well, it's not mandatory, but if the people in our laboratory, and most of them do, want to get themselves typed or be a part of this database, so to speak.
And you would rely upon the typings in that laboratory control list as accurate?
Well, if there's a discrepancy that comes up, obviously it has to be looked into. But she's done typing on it, and she's a good analyst. She reports it out, and obviously sooner or later somebody else is going to use those same samples and, confirm her results to a certain extent. They're basically set up there for practice purposes, and once they're established as coming up with these types, then they can be used as standards.
All right. Now, I show you 1191A and B and ask you if you recognize these documents as being additions to the laboratory control list. Please examine them, as compiled by Aaron Riley.
It looks like something she generated. It's got her signature over there.
Would you recognize this as reliable additions to the laboratory control list as compiled in your laboratory with respect to the genotypes of Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola?
Objection, no foundation, speculation.
Sustained.
Could I just take another look and talk to Ms. Clark? We may withdraw an objection. Sure.
All right, another moment. Can I take a moment? Can I take a moment?
I'm informed there's no objection, so my last questions are just dependent. 2 minutes, Mr. Harris is looking for the Bronco Results Board. Now, while we're waiting for that board, Mr. Yamauchi, do these records indicate that Dennis Fung, what do they indicate with respect to Dennis Fung's DQ alpha type?
I can read directly from the document.
Yes.
It says Fung, DQ alpha 1.1, comma 2, LDLR, BB, GYP.
Just DQ alpha.
Okay.
We're withdrawing the entire objection, so.
I understand. There are no.
No, proceed.
So what is Dennis Fung's DQ alpha type? 1.1,
He's already
2?
testified to that.
Is that right?
Yes.
And Andrea Mazzola's DQ alpha type is a 1.1, 1.2. Is that correct?
According to that document, yes.
And Dennis Fung's D1S80 genotype is an 1828.
Yes, according to that document.
And Andrea Mazzola's D1S80 genotype is a 3139.
Yes.
Now, we have- Now, directing your attention, sir, to 260, the Bronco Results Board. And I call your attention to item number 29, the steering wheel. You see that?
Yes.
Now, the DQ alpha types for the steering wheel from both Cellmark and the Department of Justice indicate a 1.1, a 1.2, and a 4 showing up on the strips. Is that correct?
That's what's indicated, yes.
Now, given the genotypes of Dennis Fung and Andrea Mazzola for the DQ alpha system, would you not agree, would you agree with me, sir, that neither Dennis Fung nor Andrea Mazzola could be the source of the number 4 allele on item 29?
Neither could be the source. Neither one of them has a 4 allele.
So that means that neither of them could be the source of the number 4 allele on number 29, the steering wheel. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Mr. Harmon.
Mr. Yamauchi, could you read off the polymarker types from the exhibits 1191A and B from both Mr. Fung and Mr. Mazzola? Oh, Mr. Scheck's got the exhibit there.
Okay, according to this document, Fung, LDLR, BB, GYPA, AB, HBGG, AB, D7.
Well, could you write them up on the board there? I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, do you want to just put the exhibit up on the
Oh,
Elmo?
sure. Forgot where.
Rather than drawing
Absolutely.
stuff?
Mr. Yamauchi, LDLR, GYPA, HBGG, D7S8, and GC, what are those?
Those are different loci for genetic marker types.
And would you just go across with Mr. Fung and recite for the jury what what his respective types were for those markers?
Okay, one more time. LDLR, BB, GYPA, AB, HBGG, AB, D7S8, AB, and GC, BB.
And then for Ms. Mazzola?
LDLR, AB, GYPA, AB, HBGG, BB, D7S8, AB, and GC, AC.
And so, If there are any stains that were typed by cell mark using the polymarker system that produce any types different than Ms. Fung and Ms. Mazzola, would that mean that neither of those people could be the source of those stains?
If they typed, I'm sorry, one more time.
Sure. If any of the stains that were typed by cell mark using the polymarker system produced results different than the results you've just described for Ms. Fung or Mr. Fung and Ms. Mazzola, Mr. Fung and Ms. Mazzola would be excluded as the source of those stains. Is that true?
Yes, provided we're talking about a single source and not a mixture, yes.
Okay, can we put up 1191A, that's the D1S80 results. Mr. Fung had an 1828, Ms. Mazzola had a 3139, is that true?
Yes, according to that document.
And neither of those people have a 24 allele, is that true?
It's not listed there.
And neither of them had a 25 allele, is that true?
It's not listed there.
And therefore, neither Mr. Fung nor Ms. Mazzola could be the source of any stains that have, the sole source of any stains that have a 24 or 25 allele.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Let's go back to the Henry Lee board. Do you mean to criticize Dr. Lee for what he did in your presence during his examination of those socks?
Objection.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Are you critical of anything that Dr. Lee did in your presence while he examined the socks, item 13?
No.
And what was the point in describing what he did?
Objection.
Legal grounds. Legal grounds.
Objection calls for speculation from this witness. Improper question.
Sustained.
Did you have a point in describing your observations that you wrote down in your notes about Dr. Lee's examination of those socks?
Same objection.
Sustained.
What point, if any, did you
Same
have?
objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Why did you write down what you saw Dr. Lee do?
Objection assumes a fact, not an evidence.
Overruled.
Well, basically, he has a good reputation, and he handles evidence in the same fashion that we do.
You made extensive notes about your observations?
Yes, I did.
And in your notes, did you hesitate at all in describing the fact that Dr. Lee did not change his gloves during the examination?
Objection. Irrelevant.
Overruled.
No.
Would it help to refresh, or do you remember the exact words that you used to describe your observation about Dr. Lee and changing gloves?
I can refer to my notes.
Sure. Would you do that if it would help refresh your recollection? To look at your notes, Mr. Yamauchi?
Yes.
Do you recall what you wrote down at the time you observed Dr. Lee examine those socks?
The points did not change.
Excuse me a second. Mr. Scheck, you're going to have to stand someplace else. Mr. Arnold.
What did you write down when you saw Dr. Lee examine those socks with regard to the gloves?
Points did.
Just the form of that question, Your Honor, particularly in light of the notes. I don't think they're speaking objection.
What's the legal basis?
Legal basis, well, it's hearsay, number one.
Overruled. Say prior consistent statement after cross-examination. Proceed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Overruled.
My objection in that regard has to do with the point of alleged fabrication. It's prior consistent.
Proceed.
I wrote points did not change gloves throughout the entire process.
Mr. Yamauchi, are you part of some conspiracy to unjustly convict Mr. Simpson in this case?
Objection, Your Honor.
No.
Mr. Yamauchi, are you trying to cover up the fact that Detective Lang walked around the LAPD SID lab with a pair of smelly Reeboks on June 14th?
Overruled.
No.
If you had seen that, would you have described that to the jury?
Like I said before, I don't recall whether I saw him or not that day.
Let's cover some specific points very briefly, if you will. When did you do the Fitzco cart, pipetting the blood out of the reference vial and putting it on the card with respect to your examination and sampling of the glove?
For Mr. Simpson's blood?
Yes.
Well, I did that first so I could allow it to dry.
Is that clear in your mind?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you have a practice with, you've already described how you work on one microcentrifuge tube at a time and then put it in a rack. Do you have a practice at some point with regard to numbering those tubes in the rack?
Well, I have to put an extraction number on the top of the cap
When do you do that?
when I go to serology, to the serology area and start my extraction.
And is there any reason you would change the order of the tubes that you'd previously put in the rack when you did the sampling of the evidence?
No.
When you did your examination of the glove from Rockingham, item number 9, did you use a stereo microscope?
No.
Did you change your gloves after you sampled the glove, when you touched it with your right hand, when you touched the glove with your right hand, number 9?
If I touch an item, I will change my gloves before I touch another item or go on and work.
And with regard to changing gloves, do you change gloves frequently to avoid sample-to-sample contamination?
I actually change my gloves a lot.
Okay. Do you also change them whenever they might have been contaminated with DNA?
Of course, if I suspect that, I would change my gloves.
And do you recognize that language is coming right from the Amplotype user guide?
Well, that sounds familiar, and it makes logical sense that it would be in there to some extent.
Why did you wear gloves yesterday during the sock examination and display for the jury?
Well, basically, there are two reasons, and I think I went over this already, why you would wear gloves, and one of them is obviously to protect yourself from contracting any pathogens from any potential evidence, and the other reason is to minimize the risk of contaminating.
Let's talk about the LAPD PCR protocol just for a few moments. Mr. Scheck asked you if there's a section in there, section 15, about the yield gel. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And he asked you if there's a section in there, section 16, about doing a slot blot. Is that right?
Yes.
What's the purpose of having those sections discussing those topics in the protocol?
Well, they're there to explain how, step by step, you would go through that process.
Does the LAPD SID PCR protocol also describe more than one extraction procedure?
Yes, it does.
And can a forensic scientist get the correct answer, the true answer, without doing either a yield gel or a slot blot?
Yes.
You recall yesterday Mr. Scheck asked you some questions about section 4, the evidence handling section?
Yes.
Remember that? And specifically, the topic of receiving evidence for analysis. You recall yesterday the subcategory is walk-ins, and he asked you to read the section that says the only evidence items that will be processed on a walk-in basis will be those items that are received from a detective/officer that has completed a proper transfer of the items into the evidence control unit, and then in parentheses ECU. Do you
guys.
remember that yesterday?
Hey guys, do you want to hear a joke? It happened like 15 hours ago. The joke was that Scheck said that he just has a few more questions real quick. Remember that? Remember he said, Judge, I am done with this witness. And we all said, then he said, wait a second. Just one more moment. I just need one more moment with this witness.
Yes.
What's a walk-in?
Walk-in refers to, like I was explaining before, usually we get our evidence from this evidence control unit. But occasionally a detective will have the evidence in his hand and want it analyzed, so he'll walk it in. And generally speaking, we'll make them go around and book that first. That's quote-unquote what a walk-in means.
Is this case a walk-in?
It's not the same because we have a criminalist that was assigned the case. So in that respect, that person could be the conduit of the evidence.
And so this case is not a walk-in as defined in your protocol?
I don't see it that way, no.
Now, in that regard, Mr. Scheck asked you questions about detectives in serology. Are detectives routinely allowed into lab spaces without anybody accompanying them or supervising them?
That would be unauthorized if they're there by themselves. They would have to be accompanied by an authorized person, which would be one of the criminalists in the lab.
Mr. Scheck asked you a series of questions the other day with respect to Defense Exhibit 1181, had to do with some mock vaginal swab samples. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay, and you've described that as a sexual assault case, and the reported answer that you provided was a 1.24. Do you recall that testimony?
Yeah, in the results column of the hybridization sheet, that's what was written down.
Okay, and do you recall, just to try to demonstrate why you felt that was not an incorrect answer, do you recall what the source of the sperm was, the known source of the sperm was in that case? So 1.2, 1.3?
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
11.8.
I don't want to look at that table, cameraman, please.
Could you, well, let's assume hypothetically, and then I'll put the exhibit up on the board. If you'd step up to that board, this is the only drawing I'll ask you to do, and let's assume that we have a sexual assault case where you have a vaginal swab, and the victim's type, the victim's known type, which comes from the epithelial cells, is a 1.24. Okay, and the source of the sperm, or the assailant, the alleged assailant, is a 1.2, 1.3. Okay, and let's assume furthermore that you typed, and I'll ask you real briefly to describe the typing process that you engage in, that you typed both of the samples that you produced, and the result, or the typable result, was a 1.24, okay? Could you explain the process and why you feel that is not an incorrect answer?
Sure. When you deal with sexual assault cases, I believe I went over this in a little bit of detail, but I'll try to clarify it now. What happens is you are presented with a mixture, and that mixture is not always an equal mixture. In fact, there are various degrees of it being a mixture. There could be more semen than vaginal secretions, or vice versa. Because for PCR, we would be dealing with samples that the conventional serologists who initially look at the swabs would consider low in sperm count. Because we deal with these type of samples that have small amounts of semen on them, we wanted to provide ourselves with some challenging replicas of what these type of sexual assault swabs would be. The way we did that was we diluted down semen solutions, and with the epithelial cells, which are the cells that line your mouth, we had those in lieu of actual vaginal secretions, which are very similar cell lines. What happens here is what we have is a differential extraction, and that's the process by which we try to separate out these two sets of cells, the epithelial cells from the sperm cells. The problem with this, though, is that this separation is not always complete. In other words, in the fraction that's designated SC, this fraction may contain some representation from the epithelial cells, and vice versa. The SC fraction could contain some cells, the EC fraction could contain some cells from the SC fraction in the representation. So because of this, if I present myself with a swab that's quite challenging, and there's not enough of the spermatozoa or the sperm in that sample to get a typing result.
Your Honor, at this point, I would move to strike, this answer is a narrative, and I would move to strike this point as being without foundation as to what the sample did or did not have. Full rule.
Okay, where was I? Well,
I think you were just describing it where there's not enough sperm there to type.
exactly. I was talking about limits of detection. Our test, although very sensitive, does not always have strong enough detection capabilities to detect everything. So if we were presented with the sample, in this case, this is the scenario, where I could not detect this particular typing group, which would be the spermatozoa fraction, then what I would be left with would just be the epithelial cell fraction. And that's why, if you look at the strips, you can see the representation for the strip for the epithelial cell fraction. It was clear and very dark dots. In the sperm cell fraction, I had the same representation. And the reason why was because of that phenomenon I described earlier, dealing with this differential extraction. Some of this spills over into this fraction. And so what I was left with was 1.24 in the epithelial cell fraction, dark and clear. And in the sperm cell fraction, I had lighter dots, 1.24. And that was an indication to me that this was consistent with the epithelial cell fraction, and if I was reporting that out, I would not make a statement on that, because it indicates to me that this type is consistent with that, and if it's not foreign to that epithelial cell fraction, no statement can be made. That's not a wrong result. It's something that's expected when given and presented a swab that's challenging, and that very much represents the type of casework that we're presented with.
Mr. Howard. Sure. May that drawing be marked as People's 286 for identification, Your Honor? Is that right?
People's 286.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Yamauchi, just where you left off there, no, go ahead, you can sit down. It sounds like you encounter this phenomenon frequently in sexual assault cases. Is that true?
Oftentimes it's seen, yes.
And is it documented in the literature?
Yes, it should be.
Okay. Is this a mistake on your part?
No, by no means.
Okay. Could we put 1181C briefly on the Elmo, Your Honor? I just want you to look at it, and is what you have just described that's drawn up on 286 for identification, is that what's represented in 1V, both the EC epithelial cell sample and the SC, the sperm cell sample?
Yes, it is.
Okay, and it was previously known to the laboratory that, in fact, the sperm DNA type was one.
Sustained.
Was it previously known to the laboratory that the sperm DNA type was a 1.2 or 1.3?
I don't understand what you mean by previously to the laboratory.
Okay, were
or
these
known.
samples typed ahead of time before they were combined into these mock vaginal swabs?
Oh, the types of the individuals, yes.
Okay, and so, okay. Now, this differential extraction and epithelial cells, does this have anything to do with the nature of the samples or the test you performed in this case?
There are no differential extractions performed in this case by myself. And to my knowledge, it wouldn't be necessary in any of the other analyses done by any of the other labs.
Mr. Scheck asked you some questions about the danger of cross-contamination when you process degraded samples along with intact samples. You recall that?
Yes,
And I believe you said you can't tell a sample is degraded until you do the processing. Is that true?
that's true.
And, for example, if you were handling old samples, PCR can be done on mummies. Is that true?
Yes, there's literature on that.
Okay. If you were handling old samples and new samples, what would your approach be with respect to not knowing whether something's degraded ahead of time?
I'd go back to my same protocol and procedure where I would do everything separately, one by one, and not allow any two samples open at the same time.
Okay. Mr. Scheck asked you some questions about a reagent concern that Aaron Riley and Greg Matheson dealt with. Do you recall that yesterday towards the end of the day?
Yes,
Now, from your experience with that, is it true that the negative controls in these kits worked the way they were designed to work?
yes, they did.
And is it also true that once the problems were addressed, that the negative controls showed no further problems?
Yes,
Okay. And Mr. Scheck asked you some questions about validation samples and casework, and you said something about occasional anomalous results. Do you recall that yesterday?
yes,
Is it true that the reason you knew there were occasional anomalous results was because the negative controls worked?
yes.
There's been a lot of discussions about whether or not you sampling items and only working on one tube at a time constitutes processing them separately. Do you remember some of the questions Mr. Scheck asked you about that?
Yes,
Okay. I'd like to ask you a question. Yesterday you said that the extraction process on June 14th took about an hour and a half. Is that your recollection?
yes.
And then how long do you think the extraction process took on June 15th?
Approximately the same amount of time.
Okay. Do you recall the exact sequence that you extracted these samples on the June 14th run?
No, I don't. I'd have to refer to my notes.
Sure. Do you actually have them recorded on an extraction record?
Yes,
Would it help to refresh your recollection to look at that?
yes, it would. The extraction on the 14th?
Yes. Would you please recite for the jury the exact order that you processed the samples that you've already described as having sampled and put in tubes?
Okay, the order is item number 9, glove, A, B, C, D. Item number 112, which, that's a photo item number.
Is that 47?
Yes, that corresponds to the item number 47. red stain and then control. And then item number 13, photo number, which corresponds to 48, red stain, control. Item number 114, which is the photo number, which corresponds to 49, red stain and control. Item number 115, which is the photo number, corresponds to number 50, red stain, control. Number 117, number 52, red stain, control. Item number 106, photo number, which corresponds to, I believe, 41, is it? Let me... Number 41, red stain, control. And then item number 107, which corresponds to 42, red stain, control. Item number 18, which at the time was given to me as the item number, it's item number 17, O.J. Simpson, blood exemplar, blood standard number 1, and then cloth control, and that's it for that
So-
extraction.
There was approximately an hour and a half between when you began the extraction of the glove and when you extracted the DNA from Mr. Simpson's cutting from the Fitzco card. Is that correct?
I did, yeah, that extraction, all those in that time period.
And none of these controls caused you any concern about the results that you've already presented to this jury. Is that true?
That's true.
Let's talk about June 15th, if you will. Would you tell the jury the order in which you processed the samples for extraction on June 15th?
Okay, let's see here. Item number 23, red stain and then control. Item number 25, red stain and then control. Item number 31, red stain and then control. Item number 33, red stain. Item number 34, red stain. Item number 34, control. Item number 12, red stain and then control. Item number 14, red stain and then control. Blood exemplar coroners, Brown, Simpson, Nicole. Blood exemplar coroners, Goldman, Ronald. Standard number 1, and then cloth control.
And now, is it true that on both the June 14th set of tests and the June 15th set of tests, you always alternated between the red stain and the substrate control?
Yeah,
Sustained phrase question.
Did you always alternate between the red stain and the substrate control in both the June 14th and 15th runs?
yes, I had them set up in this order.
Okay, and you always had the reference sample at the end of the line?
Objection leading.
Sustained.
Did you always have the reference sample at the end of the line?
Yes, that's the way I had it set up.
Was there anything about the controls, either the substrate controls, the negative or the positive controls in the June 15th run, which undermine your confidence in the results you've presented to the jury?
No.
Before we move on to the SOX, Mr. Yamauchi, has there been anything in Mr. Scheck's questioning of you where you were...
The form of this question, self-serving, oral.
Has there been anything in Mr. Scheck's questioning of you, which included hypotheticals and possibilities, which in any way undermines the confidence that you had when you presented your DQ alpha results to this jury?
Well, at one point, I wanted to explain my interpretation of a mixture.
Objection, not responsive.
Overruled.
And this is on,
Strike.
I don't strike things that I've overruled.
and this is on item number 31.
I believe so.
Good. Would it help to refresh your recollection to look at your notes?
Yes, it would.
Why don't you do that, and then we'll give you a chance to explain that.
Yes, okay, I've reviewed them.
Okay, why don't you provide the jury with the explanation you'd like to give them on that mixture?
Okay, once again, it displays a mixture. There is a result that is over that C dot that we talked about, that confidence level. And because of that, in and of itself would be callable. But then there were some other dots that were below the level of that C dot in intensity. They were still distinguishable, but we don't have that confidence level that we use as our standard to call something. Because one of the parts of the whole was not up to the standard that we like to make the call. That's why it had to be labeled inconclusive.
And the dots that you saw that were more intense than the C dot were 1.1, 1.2?
Yes,
And the dots you saw that were less intense were a 1.3 and a 4.
yes.
Okay, let's talk about the SOX. Have you had prior experience with processing dark surfaces to try to detect blood stains?
Yes, I have in the past.
And what sorts of difficulties have you encountered?
Dark surfaces tend to hide blood stains, or they make it difficult to visually see them right offhand.
I think we've been through this topic about 3 times now with various witnesses.
That was the last question that I intended to ask on there.
All right.
And so when the words "none obvious" were used to describe what was apparent or not apparent on June 29th,
It's not the testimony. Exhibit K says,
Sustained.
No.
Hearsay.
on June 29th, when you're in Michelle's office looking at the socks, was a stereomicroscope used?
No,
Was there any sort of alternative light source used?
no,
Okay, was there anything else other than the naked eye used to scan those socks?
no, we just visually looked at them.
Okay, it's true, is it not, that you saw no,
Sustained.
is it true that you saw no apparent stained or discolored
Objection,
areas
please.
on the socks on that?
Sustained.
Did you see any discolored areas on the socks on June 29th?
We didn't look at it that well to note anything.
No, Mr. Yamaguchi, the question was, what did you see?
No,
Okay, and if subsequent tests revealed the presence of Mr. Simpson's blood on those socks, you didn't see them either?
objection to the form.
I'm so sorry I was gone for a little bit and left you guys to your own devices here. Hi, Tina. You don't understand, guys. I'm very, very famous. And sometimes other content creators call me. Some guy named Bill called me. So, of course, I had to leave you alone to your own devices to answer because I'm very, very famous. What did I miss? Probably nothing. Probably just a bunch of freaking annoying questions.
For this question.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
You didn't even see stains that were later identified as Mr. Simpson's blood on those socks?
Objection to the form of that question.
Sustained.
Did you see any stains that have since been identified as coming from Mr.
Bill
Simpson
said he
on
loved
either
you
of
all.
those socks?
Yes.
Told me to tell you he loves you.
After yesterday's display for the jury, did you see any red dust on the paper that was laid out underneath the socks?
no, I didn't.
Did you look for it?
Yes, I did.
This morning, did you
Carlos,
assist
you are a
Mr.
big
Matheson in
deal.
looking at the socks under a
Big
stereo
deal.
microscope over in the laboratory?
Objection beyond the scope.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
Okay, will you describe what transpired?
He utilized a stereo microscope to look for
Objection to this being beyond the scope, Your Honor.
a latent blood stain. What I mean by that would be a blood stain that you can't see with the naked eye. Well, he proceeded and found an area where,
Okay, stop right there.
Did you look through the microscope too?
yes,
Did you see some discolored area that Mr. Matheson had focused the
Sustained.
microscope on?
Sustained. It's
Did you
bleeding.
see- Did you see a discolored area through the stereo microscope after Mr.
Sustained.
Matheson?
What did you see?
What did you see after Mr. Matheson manipulated the socks under the stereo microscope?
Objection to this is beyond the scope.
Overruled.
there appeared to be some, well, more than discoloration, something that looked like it was sticking and adhering to the fibers.
Okay, may I proceed, or do we, this is what I alerted the court to.
I'm sorry, I want you to approach with the court order, please.
Okay, while he's doing that, how many of you, when he said stop right there, started singing Meatloaf? How many of you, or was it just me? Was I all alone singing that? Guys, Bill is here. Don't tell him what I said, okay? I don't want to get in trouble. Bill, I told everybody you love them. You told me to tell my children that you love them, so I told everybody in here how much you love them. Shouldn't you be working? Shouldn't you be making your wife some money? Get her that cash. Give her a raise. Work extra today. And then just hand her a wad of cash and say, you know what, honey, I'm not getting you flowers. I'm not getting you chocolate. Here is cash. Enjoy. All right, back to OJ. Where are we? This poor guy. Get this poor guy off the stand. Come on. This is really bad. Guys, the defense is going to get on soon, and I'm so excited. It's going to be really good. Not enough.
Yamauchi, did you then bring the socks and the stereo microscope to court, to this building this morning?
Yes.
And did you assist Gary Sims in setting up and looking at the socks upstairs in our office?
Objection, Your Honor. Be honest.
Oh, Bill, it's
Or-
100% now.
Yes.
It's not 50% anymore. I have off tonight.
Okay, and did you actually look at the stereo microscope and look at the socks after Mr. Sims had manipulated the socks?
Yes.
And will you describe what you saw?
Again, he focused in on another area than Mr. Matheson did, and the same stuff for substance adhering to the fibers of the sock were noted.
Okay, did you say Mr. Matheson or Mr. Sims? Today, upstairs?
Upstairs
Wallet.
was Mr. Sims, and back
Wallet.
at the lab was Mr. Matheson.
And were these, and will you describe what you observed upstairs with Mr. Sims after he manipulated the socks?
Yes, once again, it was the same appearing substance adhering to the fibers of the socks.
What did it look like?
Well, it looked like it could possibly be blood.
Sustained. Answer stricken. Jury's to disregard.
Did it resemble blood?
You can have him describe with particularity what he saw without the conclusion.
Will you describe with particularity what you saw? And if you can compare it with something that you already know, that would be helpful too.
It was a substance, it's kind of subtle, reddish, somewhat crystalline, adhering to the fibers of the socks.
Have you ever seen blood that looks like that?
It's leading.
Did it resemble blood?
Sustained. Ever seen anything that's similar to what you saw?
Yes,
What was that?
blood.
Now, was this a different spot than Mr. Matheson looked at and showed you in the lab this morning?
With Gary Sims?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Yamauchi, in trying to get results from start to finish on June 14th, did you do anything that would have caused Mr. Simpson to be falsely implicated by the results that you produced?
Same questions.
Rephrase the question.
Mr. Yamauchi, in working overtime and going from start to finish on the first set of DQ alpha tests that you performed on June 14th, did you do anything that undermines your confidence in the results that you've described to this jury?
Objected. Leading, speculative, asked and answered.
Overruled.
No.
Thanks, Mr. Yamauchi. No further questions.
All right. Mr. Scheck?
Mr. Yamauchi, do you believe that Dr. Henry Lee handles evidence in the same fashion that you do at the LAPD laboratory? Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, from my observations of him.
And in your notes, you have a whole series of notations about what Dr. Lee did, correct?
Yes.
All right. And after each notation, do you have down same gloves?
Yes.
Every one of
Not
them?
every one of them, but
Right.
I did write that in at certain points.
Do you write down same gloves at the end?
Yes.
So basically, you wrote down something that, after observing the whole observation, you didn't recall him changing gloves.
That's right.
Now, you were asked on redirect examination about slot blots. Recall that?
Yes.
You're asked about degraded samples.
Yes.
Now, if one does a slot blot, that will give you information as to how much human DNA is in a sample.
Yeah, I'll give you an approximation.
And a reading on how much human DNA is in a sample could assist you in making an assessment as to whether or not you're dealing with degraded samples.
To a certain extent, it could, yes.
And wouldn't you agree that in terms of guarding against cross-contamination, it's important to know if you're dealing with degraded samples?
Not if you're handling procedure, make sure that everything's done at a separate time.
You did not perform a slot blot in this case, did you?
No, I didn't.
Now,
Mr. Harmon asked you some questions about the LAPD mock vaginal swab exercise. Yes?
Yes.
Now, to your knowledge, did anyone else in your laboratory perform the mock vaginal swab exercise?
Objections irrelevant, beyond the scope. Calls
Well-
for hearsay.
They might have.
Well, wasn't this a standard given out to others in your lab?
What was made available?
And do you know if anyone else in your laboratory, with respect to sample number 1, got the 1.2, 1.3 result for the sperm sample?
I'm not sure, and I'm not sure they would have examined the same swabs that I did, because a number of swabs were made up with those types on them.
We put... Now, the way this exercise worked is that vaginal swabs were prepared. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you were taking the test, were you supposed to know what the types for the sperm sample and the epithelial fraction of these vaginal swabs was?
Well, like I was saying before, it wasn't necessarily a test as much as to see if we can type and get what answers that we expect. And I made those swabs. I made quite a few of these swabs.
So, when you were taking this test, did you know ahead of time what you were supposed to find for each of the different vaginal swabs you were examining?
Well, I suppose I could have looked it up because, like I said, I set it up and made it.
But my question to you, sir, is when you were doing the typings, did you know, for example, number 1, what result you were supposed to get for the sperm sample?
Well, I made them. Of course I would have known.
Did you, when you did the typing, did you know?
I'm sorry, I'm not understanding you. I made the swabs.
I know you made
I would know the types that are on there.
My question to you is, when you did the typing, can you move that up a little bit? When you did the typing on sample number 1 on September 9th, 1993, did you have it in mind what you were supposed to get for the sperm fraction as indicated in tube 14-6?
Oh, you mean did I have it memorized in my head, all the typing results?
Yeah.
No, my memory's not that good.
And did you sit there with the code sheet next to you and look at the look at the code sheet as you were reading the strips and putting down the typing result?
No.
So, to that extent, you didn't know what the answer was supposed to be, or what the expected typing result for the sperm fraction was supposed to be when you did the test, right? On September 3rd, 1993.
No.
Okay. Now, wasn't the point of this exercise to determine whether or not you could accurately and reliably type a mixture?
That was a process, and it was to give us some swabs that were challenging enough to test our ability so that we would have a better feel of what it's like to type casework samples.
So the point of this validation study was to determine whether or not the analysts could accurately and reliably type a mixture on a vaginal swab.
Yes, and that's what I did.
Okay. And when you're doing a mixture on a vaginal swab where you have a sperm cells and epithelial cells, you can engage in a process of what is known as differential extraction.
Yes.
And that means that you have one set of detergents that will first burst open the epithelial cells.
Well, it's more than that. It's a little bit more complicated. There's what are known as enzymes or proteases that are involved in that step.
But you put reagents into the tube, and that's going to burst open the epithelial cells and remove that DNA, and then you proceed to the sperm cells, correct?
Right, but in that first process, to a certain extent, sometimes the sperm cells could be lysed also.
But the point is that you have a process available known as a differential extraction, which permits you, when you have sperm cells and epithelial cells, to attempt to do them separately, right?
To a certain extent. And once again, there is oftentimes spillover from one fraction to the other because the process itself is not perfect.
Now, when you're dealing with bloodstain mixtures, there is no process available to you to do a differential extraction.
Why would you need to? Bloodstains are all the same cell line.
If you have a bloodstain that
Yes.
could have been created by mixtures of two or more contributors, one cannot go through a differential extraction process to determine contributors, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So to that extent, there are more tools available to the forensic analyst in terms of sorting out mixtures when you're dealing with epithelial cells and sperm cells.
Yes, in that regard.
And so, would it be fair to say that doing differential extractions on vaginal swabs is easier than sorting out mixtures on bloodstains?
Objection, that's argumentative.
Overruled.
Personally, I don't think it's easier, and I don't think anybody else that analyzes these samples do either.
Now, Mr. Yamauchi,
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, why don't you finish the thought, because we need to take a break.
oh, okay.
Go ahead, finish the thought.
Now, with respect to these typing results, there were other instances on this typing run where there was evidence of carryover between the vaginal, the epithelial cells, and the sperm cells, right?
Objection is beyond the scope. It's irrelevant.
How much more do you have of this, Mr. Chair?
2-3 minutes. There were other instances
17,000
where there was
hours.
carryover, correct? Or appeared to be
Yes.
carryover. That is to say, you got strong readings that were consistent with the sperm fraction and some weak readings that were consistent with either the
It's
epithelial
like
cells or the vaginal,
this,
or
Judge.
the sperm cells, correct?
You know when your wife tells you to please fix the sink that's dripping in the kitchen? Can you just fix the sink? Can you just go out and fix the sink? And you know, she's only been asking you for 6 months now to do it. That's how much longer he's going to take with this witness. As long as it takes you to fix the damn sink.
Correct.
But what makes number one different here with respect to line 2 is that you got a reading of 1.24 with no indication of other alleles or contributors. Right?
Yes, that's correct.
And if you were reporting this out in a case where a suspect had a 1.24 genotype for the DQ alpha system, you would have reported a match.
Objection, argumentative, it's irrelevant, beyond the scope,
Phrase
speculation.
the question. Phrase the question.
All right. Let's do it both ways. Let's assume, as in the mock vaginal swab exercise here, that the correct genotype for the sperm donor here, for the DQ alpha system, is 1.23.
For the sperm donor.
Yes.
Okay.
Objection, Your Honor, it's irrelevant, it's beyond the scope.
Overruled.
That was the genotype of the sperm donor in this exercise, right?
I'd have to see the sheet again.
All right. See the sheet? See where it says SP at the top?
1.2, 1.3?
Yes, 1.2, 1.3.
Okay.
That's supposed to be what is the sperm contribution, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, you reported out a 1.24 on your typing sheet.
Right.
If this had been a case, that would have been a false exclusion.
Objection, Your Honor, it's argumentative, misstates his testimony, it's irrelevant.
Sustained.
If your typing results had been used in a real case instead of a mock case, would that have been an incorrect typing that would have excluded the sperm donor as being a contributor to that vaginal swab?
Objection, no foundation, speculation, it's argumentative, it's irrelevant.
Sustained.
Well, the 1.24 is not the correct typing for the sperm contributor, is it?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
the 1.24 typing does not reflect the true genotype of the
Objection
sperm
asked and
contributor.
answered.
Sustained. Counsel, we've been through this.
Is there any notation whatsoever on your report or on any review of this by your supervisor that there was any incorrect typing reported on this mock vaginal swab exercise by you?
Objection asked and answered beyond the scope.
Oral.
I didn't mark down anything being wrong, and neither did my supervisor.
When you say wrong, was the discrepancy even noted?
It's not a
Objection
discrepancy.
argumentative.
Sustained.
Was there any notation put down that the sperm
Objection
fraction,
asked and answered.
Haven't heard the question.
was there any notation put down, withdraw, other than the report that Colin Yamauchi either got the correct types or no results on all the validation studies? Other than that report, was anything else said about how you did on these mock vaginal swab studies
calls for
in
hearsay.
any documents
Calls for
produced
hearsay, Your
in
Honor.
regard to the validation studies?
Still calls for hearsay. Thank you.
Excuse me, counsel. Don't make your objections while the question is being made. It makes it very impossible for the court reporter to make an adequate record. You can make your objection at the appropriate time after the question is
Well,
answered.
and I appreciate counsel doing the same for the first time, Your Honor.
That wasn't necessary, Mr. Harmon.
I agree.
All right, I think we're done for the morning session. We're going to take a recess, ladies and gentlemen. I need to speak to the lawyers. All right, would you step back into the jury room, please? Remember all of my
Yes!
admonitions to you. Don't
Let's
discuss the case
go!
amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you.
I want to fast
Don't
forward
conduct any
it.
deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. We'll be in recess for 15 minutes.
All right, here we go, guys. You better do this on camera, Judge. Oh. I'm going to lose it.
Seated.
I'm going to have a meltdown if he doesn't do it on
The
camera.
record should reflect we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Mr.
No!
Yamaguchi is again on the witness stand.
No! Oh my gosh! What? This can't be happening to us. We earned this. We put in the time, the blood, the sweat, the tears. We earned that. And he just took it from us. Like we're nothing. Like we're dirt on the bottom of his shoes. Okay. He got new timepieces. Okay, listen. Just watch the lawyers, all right? If they're very quiet and subdued and meek and humble, what am I talking about? They're never going to be that. Okay, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at the lawyers and see who might be slightly less annoying right now. They're the ones that just got their ass reamed.
And undergoing re-cross-examination by Mr. Scheck. Mr. Scheck, you may continue.
Mr. Yamauchi, just 3 or 4 more different questions about this mock vaginal swab exercise. Is there a procedure that is commonly employed by forensic analysts whereby one can look under a microscope at a vaginal swab and literally see sperm cells?
Objection beyond the scope is irrelevant.
Oral.
Yes, you can take a microscopic examination of that.
And after such a microscopic examination, one could determine whether or not there were any sperm cells in the sample.
Yes, that's correct.
Did you do that here?
I may or may not have at that point. You understand that was back in the beginning before we started casework. As far as when we do casework, that is a part of our protocol and procedure to document that to that detail of whether or not we can see the spermatozoa.
Do you have any notes indicating that you performed such an examination in this exercise?
No, I don't.
Was the purpose of this exercise to simulate the techniques that you would use in a real case?
Well, yes, it was. And to a certain extent, we were evolving and trying to decide what were the important needs and what we didn't. And obviously, we came to the conclusion that we needed that microscopic examination because that's what we do in our casework today.
Let me see. Did you just say to me a second ago that you don't know whether you did or
Yes.
did not look at this
Probably,
sample
Jude.
under a microscope?
Yes, I did.
So you might have done that.
Yes, I might have.
Are you telling us now that as a result of the mock vaginal swab exercise, you realized that you had to institute a procedure of looking at samples under a microscope to see whether there were sperm cells? Is that what you're saying now?
Argumentative, irrelevant, beyond the scope.
Oral.
It's not critical to the result, but it does give us information that we can use to troubleshoot later on.
Well, the point of looking at it under a microscope is to see whether there are any sperm cells.
Yes.
Now,
All right, counsel,
Your Honor, he was, you didn't let me,
I understand that. but
just
these are
one more
one more.
point about this. When you reported, the type result 1.24 for the sperm contribution in this exercise,
That's
No.
the reduction, the sperm cell fraction.
You have
on
a good
September
morning.
3rd. Okay, you with me?
Yes.
When you did that,
Who's all working today? I have to know. Who has to work today? Are you on call, Josh? You're probably on call at night on weekends, aren't you? Jeez. I don't think. Who else is working? No one else is working, right? Just maybe, Josh? Guys, we have off all day. We could do stuff. We should do something.
did you believe the 1.24 was the sperm contribution?
No, it had all the signs of being spillover from the epithelial cell fraction.
Did you note
That's right. Go make that money. Go earn that cash.
So it's your testimony, sir, that when you saw that 1.24 for the sperm fraction on the hybridization strip for 14-6, that you knew in your mind at that time when you wrote down 1.24 that that wasn't really the sperm contribution, that was the epithelial cell contribution?
Sustained rephrase the question.
All right. Is it your testimony that when you wrote down 1.24 on September 3rd for the sperm cell contribution, you knew at that time that that 1.24 was actually the epithelial cell, not the sperm cell?
You mean spilling over?
Yeah. When you wrote down 1.24 for sperm cell, did you know at that time when you wrote it that that was not the sperm contribution, that was the epithelial cell contribution?
Well, I don't know if at that time I did or not. Well, basically what I do is I go through them and I read off and write down my results exactly what I see on the strips. So it might have been at a later time when I went back to analyze it further that I realized that.
When did you go back and analyze it further and realize that?
I don't know.
Did you ever talk about that with any supervisor, the result of September 3rd, 1993?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm sorry?
No.
All right. Did you ever...
Counsel, I've let a lot of cross-examination into this area.
Okay.
But it's not directly relevant to the process in this case. I think we've exhausted this.
Can I ask one last question?
One question.
Under the standards of your laboratory, as far as you're concerned, you got the right answer on this mock vaginal swab study with respect to the sperm contribution.
Objection asked and answered.
Sustained.
Judge Ito is on my last goddamn nerve today. Judge Ito is really. Okay, look. Yes, Nan, that was his one question, and I'm not even mad at him for having one more question, because that's who he is. We should expect that from him. But the judge is supposed to say, wait, what? No, you had your one more question 7 freaking days ago. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I'm just going to mute myself now and scream at myself.
Mr. Yamauchi, you mentioned on redirect examination that DNA tests have been done on mummies.
Yes, I've seen a book published on that subject.
You read it?
I've glanced.
This is his last question. That was his last question? Did you read books on DNA on mummies? That was his. He said he had one more question. That was the question. Now, he's going to have to follow up with that question, because that question means absolutely not that any of the other questions meant anything. But no. This is going to be a long string of questions. Judge.
Through it.
Have you read articles about it?
May have.
To your knowledge, has a DQ alpha PCR-based test ever been successfully completed on remains of a mummy?
No, I can't say that specifically I read that. I'm
But
not
it-
sure.
Do you think, do you recall from what you read whether there would be sufficient DNA in the remains of a mummy to perform a DQ alpha PCR-based DNA test?
Well, I think it's completely possible, but I wouldn't know unless I actually read that.
Now, you indicated on redirect examination that you had encountered situations before where dark surfaces hide blood.
Well, the background makes it hard to, or doesn't make the blood very obvious.
And that was something that you knew on June 29th when you were examining the sock with Michelle Kessler and Greg Matheson.
Well, certainly we could see that it was a dark colored sock.
But you knew that dark surfaces, in your words, can sometimes hide blood. You knew that.
Yeah, it can make it hard to see.
Now, you testified on redirect examination that yesterday you went back into the laboratory with Greg Matheson and you looked under a stereo microscope to see if yesterday you could see discolorations in the sock under the stereo microscope.
Actually, that was this morning.
You did that this morning?
Yes.
You did that with Mr. Sims as well?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you can't tell this jury anything about whether what you saw under the stereo microscope last night was on the sock on June 29th.
You mean this morning?
Yeah, what you saw this morning was on the sock on June 29th.
Overruled.
No, I wouldn't know that because we didn't have a stereo microscope at the time.
Well, when you examined the sock on June 29th, none of those cutouts that we observed yesterday were there.
No, the sock was intact.
And the place that I pointed out to you on sock A, around the ankle area, would you agree was about 3/4 of an inch long and about 1/2 an inch wide, cutout area?
Yes, Josh, that's big enough.
I recall something more like a centimeter by 4 centimeters.
Still
I believe
big
that's what I
enough.
said, too. I'm not sure, though.
Now, you're saying, is it withdrawn? On June 29th, in that area, you did not see any discoloration.
Okay, I'm sorry, that's a question. No, there was nothing that was noticeable.
You did not see that area crinkled or puckered in terms of the material.
Me like my eyebrows right now.
Nothing I recall.
And yesterday, as you indicated, there were a number of areas cut out of the sock, correct?
Yes.
And you wrapped it up, you said on redirect examination, and examined the white paper.
Afterwards, the white paper was laying there, and I looked at it, yes.
And yesterday, when you looked at the white paper, when you wrapped up the socks with all the cutouts having been made in the sock, you saw no evidence of any reddish material, little particles on the paper.
No, there was nothing obvious. No, I didn't use a stereo microscope, but I just visually looked at it, and I didn't see anything.
And on June 29th, when there were no cutouts in the sock in any area, you did not see any reddish particles whatsoever on the white paper.
I don't recall.
Thank you.
Mr. Harmon?
17. He had one more question twice. 17 questions later that meant nothing, that added absolutely nothing, except blood pressure and me telling Ito to go screw himself one more time when I was muted.
Yamaguchi, I just have a few questions. We spent about a half hour talking about sperm and epithelial cells and mock vaginal swabs. Okay?
Motion to strike colloquy.
Sustain. Just ask a question.
Mr. Yamaguchi, do you have any reason to believe that there was any sperm on 78, the bottom of Mr. Goldman's shoe?
Objection. Irrelevant.
Overruled.
No.
Do you have any reason to believe that there was any sperm on the defendant's steering wheel where item number 21 was removed from?
Objection beyond the scope of recross and irrelevant.
Overruled.
No.
you have any reason to believe that there was any sperm on item 117, the rear gate at Bundy on the outside?
No.
Does the subject of sperm and epithelial cells and differential extraction have anything to do with the work that you performed in this case?
Objection.
Overruled.
Legal ground.
Irrelevant?
Overruled.
Overruled.
You made it relevant, dumbass.
The differential extraction process was not performed. We did the regular blood extraction process, so it has nothing to do with the work that I did on this case.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Yamauchi. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Yamauchi, doesn't getting correct results with mixtures have everything to do with the work you did on this case?
It's argument, Your Honor.
Yes, you want to get correct results.
And if anything, in terms of the arsenal of tools that a forensic scientist has available to sort out mixtures, isn't it easier to do vaginal swabs that are mixtures of sperm and epithelial cells than it is to do blood stains that have contributions from 2 or more people?
Question asked and answered beyond the scope.
Overruled. I assume this is the last question.
Yes?
Okay, for
Shut up,
one
Judge.
thing, if you're talking
Just
about the
shut
process,
up.
this question is actually 2 questions. If you're talking about the process, the differential extraction is more complicated, so that is harder to perform. But if you're talking about interpretations, mixtures are always difficult. Sexual assault cases, they're inherent in sexual assault cases, so that's a part of that type of work. If you have a mixture with a blood case, the same thing. Interpretations will become more difficult.
Is an interpretation easier in a sexual assault case because you have the
Liar!
ability to do
Liar! You
differential
said that was the
extractions,
last
and you can
one.
literally visualize
Liar!
the sperm cells under a microscope?
Irrelevance beyond the scope.
And it's a lie.
That is an important tool, but because it's not perfect, the same problems exist in interpretation as far as mixtures are concerned.
All right, Mr. Yamauchi, thank you very much, sir. You are excused now as a witness. And Mr. Harmon, do we have Mr. Sims available?
Yes, you do, Your Honor.
Okay, we're getting Mr. Sims back.
Subject to recall.
But,
Yes, subject to recall.
but that's fine because I didn't feel bad for Mr. Sims. When he left the stand, I wasn't like, oh God, please get this poor man off the stand. No, he was fine. He did an excellent job with the defense table. So come on, bring him back up. Yes, sir. Let's do this.
Sample remained in the evidence processing room during the entire subsequent PCR process.
Okay.
That Mr. Yamauchi then sampled the Fitzco card, which had by now dried,
Okay.
and that with each sampling, Mr. Yamauchi placed the sampling in a separate
It's so nice to see he's excited to know the question. He wants to figure out this puzzle. He wants to answer the question. He's like a puppy. Yes.
microcentrifuge tube.
Mr. Sheck, what's your objection?
My objection now is that the hypothetical has gone from assuming something generally to asking him to assume that Mr. Yamauchi in particular did certain things in certain ways. And I think that that's...
Overruled.
Okay, that with each sampling, Mr. Yamauchi put the sampling in a microcentrifuge tube and capped it immediately
Okay. As each one is being processed.
as each respective sampling was done.
Okay.
That he never had more than one microcentrifuge tube open at a time during this sampling process.
Yes, that's important. Okay.
Based on all the information that I've asked you to assume, can you comment on the likelihood that there was any sample-to-sample cross-contamination if Mr. Yamauchi used those safeguards?
I think it would be extremely unlikely that any cross-contamination would occur. And then I think looking at the key also is to look at any of the results. And if those are negative, then they verify that.
Okay, and I want you to assume then
Nice.
that all the substrate controls tested negatively and add that to the hypothetical. What would that contribute to your opinion on that subject?
Would that include any reagent blanks and that?
Yes, the reagent blanks, all of the negative controls in the PCR processing.
Yes, that would contribute to that opinion.
Now, what's the significance of Mr. Yamauchi never having more than one microcentrifuge tube open at a time?
Objection at this point, Your Honor.
Sustain. Rephrase the question.
Is there any significance if you accept the hypothetical about Mr. Yamauchi never having one tube open at
Damn
a time?
judge.
What's the significance of that?
Same objection.
Rephrase the question.
Is it significant that Mr. Yamauchi never had
Rephrase
more
the
than...
question. What's the significance of not having more than one microcentrifuge open at a time? Microcentrifuge 2 open at the same time during the course of PCR testing.
Yes, by following that procedure, that makes it such that one tube is not likely to contaminate the contents of another tube. In other words, if you open a tube and you have another tube open, then potentially these things we've talked about, such as aerosol, could occur. But by keeping it one tube at a time, you're not going to see...
I need my kids to hear this. I need to make my kids watch this entire trial from the beginning just to get to this part. Because there are 5 bottles of maple syrup open right now in my cupboard. Because they've opened one and another at the same time. So I think that maybe if I start this at the beginning, that will teach them a damn lesson that they need to learn. What do you think? Or I could make them pay, I throw it all away, make them pay for it more. Then they'll learn too.
that problem, and you're also less likely to cross-contaminate and mix up samples.
When you say you're not likely, is there any scientific data to support the idea that these amplicons can go through the walls of these tubes?
I've never seen anything like that, no.
Is that why those tubes are made of whatever they're made of?
Well, that's why they're made that way, and also they have secure caps on them.
Okay. What is the significance of only working on one coin envelope containing a substrate control bindle and a stain bindle at a time?
At this point, asked and answered. He's asked the hypothetical. Now he's going back through each detail of the hypothetical again, and it seems to me that that's cumulative, repetitive, and we did it the last time.
Oh
Well, the
my
significant...
God. What did he just say? What the hell's going on here? What's going on in OJ today? Why is this going? I don't understand. That's all he does. He is objecting to. Oh my God.
So that is that
Rum. We need
there's
rum.
less likelihood of any mix-up, and also there's less likelihood of any cross-contamination, because if the sample is all closed up, it will not be contaminated by an open sample,
Because it can't get out?
because it can't get out, basically. It's enclosed.
And the last specific question on this series, what is the significance of, remember I asked you to assume that Mr. Yamauchi only cut a portion of one of multiple swatches that then went off to the PCR process. What's the significance of holding back all those other swatches, particularly if they're sent to other laboratories to do testing?
Well, the significance of that would be that when that part of the examination, that initial part of the examination is done cleanly, then that can also be checked by having other laboratories run those particular remaining samples. What you gather from that is that if one were to make the hypothesis that there was some contamination, one would expect that this would be at best, maybe some sporadic contamination. In other words, it's unlikely that all these swatches would all get this bit of contamination. So by having these swatches in reserve, one can check those against the other results.
I want you to assume hypothetically that with respect to Bundy items 47, these are along the walkway, 48, 50, and 52, based on what I've just represented in the hypothetical, that portions of those swatches were processed by Mr. Yamauchi, starting in serology and then in the way they do it, and that the balance of those swatches were sent to your laboratory or Cellmark. Okay?
Okay.
Let's assume that. What would be the significance of the 3 laboratories producing the exact same DQ alpha typing result? I say 3 labs, I mean Mr. Yamauchi, LAPD, Cellmark, and DOJ.
Sustained.
Okay. Mr. Sims, let's go back to, he's cut a portion of the swatch, and then portions of those.
Counsel, you can ask him the general question about the significance of other labs testing the same samples. But we do have the problem of overlap between the witnesses.
I'm
Chrissy,
sorry, I couldn't hear you.
we have the problem between the overlap of the witnesses.
Okay, assume hypothetically that portions were processed by Mr. Yamauchi and by Cellmark and
Counsel,
DOJ.
what's your approach without the court reporter, please?
try to get this. Mr. Sims, what's the significance if samples are sent to different labs of each laboratory getting the same test result?
Well, again, by having these multiple swatches and by having different laboratories get the same results, that indicates to me that these are in fact valid results, that there's no evidence at all that contamination occurred.
Okay, are you familiar with the concept of handling, or strike that? Are you familiar with the term of handling a sample downstream in terms of processing things in the PCR process?
Yes, I know what that term means.
Could you describe that for the jury, please?
By processing samples downstream, and I'm working from my left to my right, what I would normally do would be to start with the evidence samples on my left, have those tubes in a rack on my left, and then move in this direction of work so that, for example, the reference samples would be, and reference samples would be like victim and suspect samples, that sort of sample. Those would be downstream in the direction that I'm working. So these would be to my right as I'm working.
And why would you do that?
Well, the concern would be that if you were to have any sort of cross-contamination, you wouldn't want the reference samples to cross-contaminate the evidence. Particularly in a typical case, you're worried about the suspect sample cross-contaminating the evidence samples, for example, in a rape case or something like that.
And so why is processing it downstream a solution to addressing that problem?
Well, because, again, this goes to having one tube open at a time and working in a certain order, that makes it unlikely that any possibility would exist whereby the suspect sample could come back this way into the evidence samples.
Because you processed it at a later time.
Yes, you processed it at a later time downstream.
And you familiar with the Amplotype user guide?
Yes.
Okay. May I have a moment, Ron?
Certainly.
Mr. Sims, just to revert back for a second, if Mr. Yamauchi consumed all his samples in testing, okay, assume that, all of his samplings in testing,
I would.
Mr. Sims, this PCR process, the way you do it, is it consumptive testing?
Well, one of the advantages of PCR is that you don't have to use up all the sample if that's what you mean. In other words, you can get by with using very little material and still get a result, and that saves some material. It conserves evidence.
Okay, but what you test, you consume?
Yes, what you extract, you consume, except for the portion of the extract that you didn't use for the typing, for example.
So, and just to revert back to my hypothetical, assume that early on cuttings were made and tested and consumed. Okay.
Yes.
And then you later got samples.
Yes, now I understand what your question is. In other words, those samples, those portions of fabric that have been extracted are no longer useful to us. We would need new portions, unextracted portions of fabric.
And you tested different swatches.
Yes, I tested different physical pieces of cloth than the ones that Mr. Yamauchi tested.
Okay. Mr. Sims, quite some time ago, we saw a defense exhibit that attempted, through a series of hypotheticals and assumptions that you addressed, to quantify amounts of DNA that was present in 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52. Do you recall that?
Yes, I do.
And you yourself processed item 117, which was collected from the rear gate at Bundy on July 3rd. Is that true?
Yes, I did.
What is the significance of comparing, to you as a scientist, of comparing how much high molecular weight human DNA is left in the Bundy stains to how much DNA is in item 117 that was
I'm
collected?
going to tell you how the first stream went, Josh. I loved it. And here's why. We did only Judge Eric Johnson. And it was very lawyerly talking and pondering and thinking and I mean, there was some victim impact statements, but nothing crazy and screaming and everything like that, which I know everybody loves. But I also love court, and I love court. And we had court today. We had motions, and we had law, and we had, him wondering if he needs to suppress this evidence or not suppress this evidence. And it was slow and steady, and we didn't finish it. So we get more tomorrow, because I'm going to play it again tomorrow. Poor guys. It's all right. Everybody has to chat to keep them entertained. It's fine.
On July 3rd from the rear gate at Bundy.
Well, I don't think that's a particularly significant comparison, because the Bundy samples were clearly, the ones that included 47, 48, 49, and 50 were clearly degraded. So a lot of the human DNA would appear to have been degraded in those samples.
Okay, we'll talk the details in a few minutes, but is there anything about the comparison of items 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52 with 117 in terms of how much DNA there that suggests scientifically that item 117 was not on that gate on June 13th?
Objection to the form of that question.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Is there anything about the comparison or the attempt? I'll withdraw that. What, if anything, is there about Mr. Scheck's hypotheticals, which you were directed to assume numerous things, about the amount of DNA, human DNA, that was in 47, 48, 49, 50, and 52, when compared with 117, that relates to whether or not 117 was actually on that rear gate on June 13th?
Sustained.
Is there anything about the amounts of DNA that were contained in those items, 47, 48, 49, 50, 52, when compared with 117, that provides any scientific information about whether or not 117 was on that rear gate on June 13th?
Same objection.
Sustained. You can ask whether or not there's any relationship to their relative age.
Is there anything about the amounts of DNA that were contained in those items that I keep numbering to you that suggests how long any of those items were at Bundy, 49, 47, 48, 50, 52, when compared with 117?
No, again, I don't think it's the amounts of DNA that are significant. I think the significance is probably in the collection, the drying process.
Okay. Let's talk about 115, 116, and 117. You've had a chance to examine and process 115 and 116 as well, have you not?
Yes, I did. I processed those 3 samples from the rear gate.
And have you seen photographs of them?
Yes, I have seen some photographs.
Well, let's take them one at a time. What is your observation of the photographs and of 115 and your examination of 115 that might shed some light on how long these things were there?
That calls for speculation.
Well, my understanding is that it's number 115 that is clearly shown in the photographs from June, and that I used that stain then as a basis to compare it to what I saw in my yields of 115, 116, and 117.
Okay, would you describe what you saw there?
As far as my yields?
Yes, for those 3 items from the rear gate.
Yes. What I calculated is I went back and looked at how much DNA I was getting per each weight of the swatch. In other words, remember we talked about weighing these swatches. And so I looked at the nanograms of DNA that I recovered per each milligram of the swatches that were tested. And the data that I came up with from that was, and this is for number 115, 116, and 117, looking at the high molecular weight DNA on a yield gel, number 115 was 13.5 nanograms per milligram swatch. Number 116 was 13.6 nanograms per 1 milligram swatch. And number 117 was about 27 nanograms per 1 milligram swatch.
So how can you correlate the relative amounts then of those 3 stains to one another?
Well, I'd say they're all in the same ballpark.
Now, in visualizing or seeing the photographs of 115 and 116, what did they look like as they appeared in the photograph that was taken of them that you saw?
Yeah, this would be 115 and 116.
Just 115 and 116.
Well, could I have that particular photo again just to refresh my memory on that?
I'm not sure.
Make-
We'll come back to that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you've also had an opportunity through the hypothetical and through reviewing records to have looked at how much DNA was in item 6 that was over at the Rockingham address, have you not?
Yes, I did.
And item 52, the stain that was processed for RFLP typing that showed a match with Mr. Simpson by cell mark.
Yes.
Okay. And what can you say about the relative amounts of DNA in 6, in 52, and 115, and 116?
Well, it's difficult to compare all those, but what I did is I looked at number 6, again with this nanograms of DNA per 1 milligram swatch, because that was a relatively undegraded sample. And I compared that to, for example, number 52 and some of the other Bundy drops as well. And the calculation that I came up with for number 6, which was the Rockingham drop, was about 6.7 nanograms DNA per 1 milligram swatch. Number 52 was about 2.4 nanograms DNA per 1 milligram swatch. And then the other samples, 47, 48, 49, and 50, that ratio was all of those samples, the ratio was less than 1. So those were the very degraded samples, 47, 48, 49, and 50.
Okay. Could we, I'm sorry to do this belatedly, but could we write the relative amounts in make that 287 for identification, Your Honor?
How about if over the lunch hour we have Mr. Sims write that out?
And that'd be... Now, did you also make a comparison, I think you just alluded to the sample, between the kind of DNA that you saw in item number 6 from Rockingham and the kind of DNA that you saw in item 48 along the Bundy walkway?
Yes, I did.
And what can you tell us about that?
Well, I can tell you that there was what I felt was significantly less DNA in that 48, that Bundy drop, than in the Rockingham drop.
How do you know that?
Just by doing this type of comparison, and also by looking at the yield gel determination to show that there was a degradation present in that number 48 sample, the Bundy drop. I mean, this was a degraded sample.
And how do you know 48 was degraded?
Well, I could see evidence that there was some bacterial growth on it, for example, that there was high molecular weight DNA of non-human origin, which suggested to me that it was probably bacterial.
Nanogram.
Now let's throw in another stain,
I
if you
love
will.
it.
Item number 12. Are you familiar with Cellmark's processing of item number 12 from inside Mr. Simpson's residence?
She's lucky
Yes,
she's
my
a girl.
understanding is that there was
Right? Because didn't they say nanogram? Didn't they go like this? Wasn't there a this involved in the nanogram? Or was I drunk on my rum? If Nan was a boy and this is nanogram, Nan would be very upset right now. But Nan's a girl, and this is great for a girl. I'm only this big.
a significant amount of high molecular weight human DNA that enabled them to get an RFLP determination from it.
And have you reviewed those records, too, to see the kinds of DNA that was present there?
Yes, I believe we did that particular sample very early on in our workup on this case.
And you reviewed, actually, some of Cellmark's reports on that?
Yes, I'd like a moment to check that because this was, I believe, back in August.
Mr. Scheck, do you want to see what report he's looking at?
Yes, this was on page 4 of my notes from August 13th. I noted that there was high molecular weight DNA in Cellmark sample 08, which was LAPD number 12.
Any signs of degradation?
I didn't note any for that sample. I did note some degradations in some of the other samples.
Okay, any indicators of bacteria?
Again, I don't recall seeing that in that particular sample, but I just looked for the high molecular weight band. That's all the information I have.
Okay, so far we've discussed 115, 116, 117, 6, 52, 48, and 12.
Nanogramma. A
Yes.
nanogramma.
Just generally speaking, I don't want to belabor this point. What is the impact of bacteria?
Stop. Guys, don't worry. he does not want to belabor this point, guys. I think they're trolling me again, like yesterday. I firmly believe now that the whole OJ trial and everything was created back then, not real. No, it's not real. It was just created back then, just so that I could be trolled today. They knew in the future this was going to troll the hell out of me. But I don't want to belabor this point. Let's keep going.
When it comes in contact with a fresh blood stain.
Well, the blood stain provides nutrients for the bacteria to grow. So the bacteria basically feed on that, and then they thrive at the expense of the blood stain is what happens.
And that's why sometimes you can't type stains.
Yes, that's one reason.
Okay. In your observations of 115, 116, and 117 when they were processed by you, did you see any signs of bacterial-caused degradation?
No, I don't recall seeing any bacterial degradation. The type of pattern I did see with the Bundy drops, I don't recall seeing that with those rear gate samples.
Do you want to check just to
Yes,
make sure?
I'd like to review that yield gel just to confirm that. Yes, this is, I'm looking at the results on pages 168 and 170 of my notes. I did not see that type of bacterial degradation pattern on those samples that I did see on the Bundy drops that we subjected to a yield gel.
Okay. Assume that item number 12, the Cellmark RFLP result, that was obtained from inside a residence and there was no apparent presence of bacteria. Would those assumptions be consistent with the kinds of results that Cellmark obtained on that sample?
Yes.
Okay. Assume further that 52, the drop that was obtained from outside in the driveway at Bundy,
Okay.
that's a different surface or substrate than all the ones along the walkway, 47, 48, 49, and 50.
Yes, that is a different substrate.
And are you familiar with the kinds of substrates that those are, those two areas?
I don't mind the general inquiry, but I think no foundation for this question.
I'm going to overrule it because, the jury has been out. They've seen the diagram. They know what they're...
I understand, I'm just saying, as far as...
Proceed.
Yes, my familiarity is from the scene photographs that I have observed, and I noted there are some differences in the substrates.
And what would those differences be?
Well, particularly with the drops that my understanding are inside the gate, inside the rear gate, that looked like a somewhat soiled, or there's a lot of vegetation around that particular area, whereas 52, my understanding was that was more out by the carport, away from vegetation.
What's the significance of that in terms of the observations that you made about the stains that were inside the gate along the walkway?
Well, again, assuming there was less soil in that particular area, for example, or vegetation, those could be the sorts of sources for bacterial growth. So if 52 was away from that type of substrate, it would most likely suffer less than the Bundy inside drops.
Okay, and what about the proximity of the vegetation along the walkway versus distance of the vegetation from where 52 was collected
Your
from?
Honor, I think we've now certainly exceeded...
Sustained. Foundation.
Sure. Have you looked at the
Counsel, haven't we made the point, the jury's been to the crime scene, they know where the vegetation was, they know where the plant growth was, they know about bacteria effect on the degradation process.
Okay, Mr. Fairlow, why don't you hang on? So what effect does bacteria or does this biological material have when we're talking about bacterial-caused degradation of bloodstains?
Well, again, that kind of material could provide the bacteria, for example, that would cause this degradation.
Okay, let's compare the surfaces along the walkway with the painted rear gate that 115, 116, and 117 were removed from. What's the significance of the different kinds of surfaces that pertain to these items and bacterial contamination?
I think this is asked and answered.
Overruled.
Well, again, assuming that those surfaces are away from this type of vegetation and soil, then they would be less likely to be degraded in this process.
What about the painted surface versus the walkway substrate surface?
Well, again, assuming that it's a fairly clean surface, then that would be less likely to have this soil or vegetation on it than something like a walkway near vegetation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our recess for the morning session. Please remember all of my admonitions to you. Don't discuss this case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you with regard to the case. We'll stand in recess until 1 o'clock, and Mr. Sims, you may step down. You're ordered to return at 1 o'clock.
And as soon as, oh, I can fast forward it. We're going to be done. We're going to be done. We did good today.
Counsel, anything we need to discuss before we invite the jurors to rejoin us?
No, sir. You lost your chance to discuss anything with your performance today. Sir, abso-freaking-lutely not. You don't get to discuss anything today. It's Saturday. We are going to go and we are going to have fun today because it's our day off except for Josh, who's going to have fun today working. I hope you're very busy because then A, you make money, and B, it goes faster. And then you can get to tomorrow where you do have off tomorrow, unless you get a call. And then you don't have off tomorrow. But anyway, thank you so much for coming out. Martha, thank you for the rum. You know what I need. I hope you guys have a great, great, great day. And I'm going to see you again real soon. Maybe later tonight you'll hear from me, but not on this channel. Bye, guys. Maybe.